everyone. My name is James Listug, and I am a Hardanger Fiddle player. For those of you who know what a Hardanger Fiddle is, you're probably Norwegian, or maybe you know somebody who is. Hardanger Fiddle looks a lot like a regular violin, or what they call in Norway a vanlig fele, but the Hardingfele, or Hardanger Fiddle, is slightly different. The first Hardanger Fiddle was attributed back to the mid-1600s, about 1651, to the Hardanger region of Norway. And so thus we have the name of the instrument. Several things are different about this from a regular violin. Notably, you'll notice that it has more pegs on there. More pegs mean more strings. The Hardanger Fiddle traditionally nowadays has anywhere from 6 to 9 strings. They figured about every 100 years another string was added. It has 4 strings on top like your traditional violin, and then there are 4 or 5 strings that run underneath, which are called sympathetic strings, and they are tuned harmonically to the top ones, and when you play the top strings, the bottom ones vibrate, known as drone strings. If you've heard this instrument, which you will shortly, you'll think that you're hearing something kind of like bagpipes. Bagpipes have the drone sound underneath. The Hardanger Fiddle has a similar kind of musical ability. It is tuned differently from a regular violin. There are 20 different tunings that are attributed to this instrument, and there are 2 different kinds of tunes that are typically played on it. First of all, you have gammeldans, which are your traditional, I guess you could say, gammeldans means old dances or old tunes, but they're actually newer than the bygdedans, which are your more regional and traditional dances or tunes. A gammeldans is your polkas, your poles, your waltzes, and then your bygdedans is your springers and your gangers, lausdans, samdans. These are your real traditional dances that are by region. They have, they're steeped in history, and the people who perform them are very passionate about them and preserving the history of those particular dances and tunes. A couple other things about the Hardanger Fiddle that you may notice. It doesn't have your typical scroll. It has mine has a dragon's head, but they also had the head of a lion or the head of a woman carved at the top. Next, they have mother of pearl inlay, at least mine does. Nowadays, they don't. They use synthetic materials, but back in the day, they made their fingerboard and instrument more ornate with that kind of decoration. And then there's a design called rosing on here, if you've all heard of rose mauling. This is the Hardanger Fiddle equivalent of it. It's just black India ink that's been painted on there with images of flowers and petals, and it's very ornate. Lastly, the violin creates a lot of sound and a lot of resonance. It's actually thicker through the middle than a regular violin, and then the people call them speaker holes or F holes. They are wider to allow more sound to escape, and with the instrument being a little bit thicker than a regular violin, the sound travels in there and creates a lot more volume. So. I encourage you to go online and see if you can look up some Hardanger Fiddle players. There's some really, really talented ones in Norway. Some that are extremely more talented than I am, but for today, you get me. So I'll play a couple of tunes for you. First one is Brudemarch fra Seljord, or Wedding March from Seljord. And traditionally, the fiddle player was hired to process the wedding party from the farm or from wherever they were having the party, either to the church or from the church back to the place where they're having the reception, I suppose you could say. And he was not allowed to enter the church. The fiddle was considered an instrument of the devil during the more religious movement during the 1800s, and these fiddles were smashed and burned. because they were said to have done crazy things and known with drinking and womanizing. So nowadays, maybe that's kind of true, but they're a little bit more accepted, and they're cherished and allowed in many houses of worship and other places. So anyways, Brumarch for Seljord. So that was Brumarch for Seljord. The second tune I'm going to play for you, I met a group that was traveling from Norway, and they have fiddlers groups, or spelebandslags, or and they consist of a few fiddle players, and there's usually a danserlag or dansergruppa that comes with them, or dance group. And they're regional, or they're specific to the valley in which they grew up in, or where they're formed in Norway. And this one comes from the city of Ålesund, Ålesund Spelebandslag. It's kind of in the northwest central part of the country. It's north of Bergen. And they came over to Wisconsin on a tour to the Sons of Norway 5th District Heritage Camp up outside of Eau Claire. And I got my hands on one of their CDs, and I listened to it over and over again, and I taught myself this one from this one, and this one is called Me Seljord og Stas, with style and show.